On July 15, 1976, a school bus vanished in California. Inside were 26 children and one driver. What began as an ordinary ride home became one of the most terrifying kidnapping cases in American history. They were taken, hidden, and buried underground, but in the darkness gone, they refused to give up. The children were from Chowchilla, California. They were between 5 and 14 years old. Their bus driver was Frank Edward Ray, known to many simply as Ed Ray. That afternoon, he was taking them home from a summer school outing. Parents were waiting. Dinner tables were being prepared. No one imagined that the children would not arrive home. As the bus moved through the countryside, a van appeared in the road. It blocked the bus from passing. Then 3 masked men approached. The children became silent. Ed Ray stayed as calm as he could, but the ride home was over. The kidnapping had begun. The kidnappers hid the bus. They covered it with brush and bamboo. When police later found it, it was empty. No children, no driver, only silence. Back in Chowchilla, fear spread through the town. Parents waited for answers, but no one knew where the bus passengers had gone. The children and Ed Ray were moved into 2 vans. The windows were covered. They could not see where they were going. For hours, they were driven through California, hungry, tired, afraid. The youngest children did not understand what was happening. The older ones tried to stay brave, and Ed Ray kept watching, thinking, waiting for a chance. After nearly 11 hours, they arrived at a rock quarry near Livermore. There, underground, was a buried, moving van. It had been prepared in advance. Inside were mattresses, some food, and water. But it was not safety. It was a prison. One by one, the children and their driver were forced inside. Then the opening was covered. Metal above them, dirt above the metal, and darkness all around. They had been buried alive. Underground, time moved slowly. The space was small. The air felt heavy. The children were scared. Some cried, some prayed, some sat quietly, trying to understand why this was happening. But Ed Ray did not panic. He knew the children needed calm. He knew fear could spread quickly, so he helped them focus. He helped them believe that there was still a way out. The kidnappers thought escape was impossible, but they underestimated the people they had trapped. Inside the buried van, Ed Ray and some of the older children began to work. They stacked mattresses, they climbed upward, they pushed against the cover, they tried again and again. The dirt above was heavy, the space was tight, but they kept going because giving up meant staying underground. They dug with their hands, they pushed through dirt, they fought for every inch. The children were exhausted. Ed Ray was exhausted, but they were getting closer. Then air, fresh air, after around 16 hours underground. The opening finally broke free, one by one, and they climbed out of the buried van, dirty, tired, shaken, but alive. At the quarry, the survivors found help. The impossible had happened. 26 children and their bus driver had escaped from underground. Back in Chowchilla, the news spread quickly. They were alive. Parents who had feared the worst could finally hold their children again. The case shocked the nation. People across America followed the story. How could a school bus full of children disappear? How could anyone plan something so cruel? Investigators soon learned the motive: ransom. The kidnappers wanted millions of dollars, but their plan failed because the victims survived and because they escaped before the ransom demand could succeed. The investigation moved quickly. Authorities discovered evidence connected to 3 young men: Frederick Woods, James Schoenfeld, Richard Schoenfeld. All 3 were arrested. The crime had been planned for months, but the plan collapsed because of courage and because the victims refused to remain trapped. All 27 victims survived, but survival did not mean the fear disappeared. Many carried the trauma for years. Some struggled with nightmares. Some struggled with anxiety. Some found it difficult to feel safe again. The world saw a miracle, but the survivors lived with the memory. The Chowchilla kidnapping became an important reminder. That trauma can remain long after rescue. Ed Ray became a hero, not because he was fearless, but because he stayed calm when fear surrounded him. He protected the children as best he could. He helped them survive the darkness, and when escape became possible, he helped lead them toward the light. Sometimes heroism is not loud. Sometimes it is simply refusing to give up. The Chowchilla school bus kidnapping remains one of the most shocking crimes in American history, but it is also a survival story, a story of children who endured the unimaginable, a story of a driver who stayed strong, a story of people trapped underground who found a way back to life. They were buried in darkness, but darkness did not win. Hope survived, courage survived, and so did they. Fade to black.